Hey guys, I hope you're doing good today. Hello, somebody just joined. Hi, how are you? Hey. I hope everyone is doing great. Everyone else who's watching at this time, and everyone who'll be watching later as well. My name is Enzen Charlemagne. Welcome to my page. Welcome to my live with Enzen. So today I'm going to be talking about my horrible experience with the evil spirits in South African jungle. Okay, so before I just get to the juice, like to the main story, to the crux of the story, I just want to give you a background of what really happened before I found myself in that situation of sleeping in the jungle, having an experience with the evil spirits in that jungle. So I was 8 years old. Yes, I was around 8 years old, and so my brother, we are 5 in the family, and we had our older brother, which was a child that only belonged to my mother. It was not my daddy's child. He was well loved. He was the firstborn in our family. Everyone else loved him in the community. He had a very bubbly personality. At our house, everyone loved him, and even myself and my whole family, we loved him so deeply and so dearly. So then he would stay at our home, and then he would also stay at my grandmother's home. So he would just come and go. He didn't have one home, he had like 2 homes. So my brother came to my home, to our house, the other day, and he was feeling very sick. And then my mother asked him what was the problem, what happened. He said, I don't really know. I just feel like I don't have energy in me. I'm just feeling weak. I'm just very sick. I've been getting sick lately. And then my mother took our brother to the hospital, and then the doctors say that he is losing a lot of blood. But then it's not like he was beaten, he was bleeding or anything else. But then the doctors say that his blood count was going down a lot, and he was given a treatment, and he was told to drink a lot of water, of which he did, and then he was recovering, whereas he was in our home. So my brother went back to our grandmother's house, which was his second home, to stay there. And then after that, unfortunately, he ended up dying there. So we were staying in the villages, whereas our grandmother was staying in the city. So then they sent somebody to the villages to tell our family about what happened to our brother. Then there were people who came and then who broke the news that our brother died. And it was a very emotional day. Everyone was drained. Nobody had energy. We were all hurt at that time. And after that, my mother decided that, okay, since our brother died, we should all go back to the city. At that point, my mother and my father didn't have no job. They all lost their jobs, and they were staying in rural areas. They were no longer in the city. So at that point, when the news came to us, like at our home, we're all broke. So then my mother decided that we should walk to the city. The city was very far away from our village, and we didn't have money for transportation because it was all my brothers and my mother and my father. So they didn't have money to transport everybody. So then we decided to all take a walk. So the following day at around 5 a.m. we wake up very early in the morning, And then we started praying before we left our house. And then we left the rural area that we're staying at, and then we started walking to that city so that my parents can be able to hear what actually happened to our older brother, and so that they could be able to plan for the funeral with our family members. So we walked. It was me, my dad, my siblings, and my mother. We walked and then we arrived at the city around 6 p.m. It was very late when we arrived, but then everything went smooth. And then upon arriving, we were very tired, and then after that, people were so emotional. Our cousins, sisters were there, and the rest of the family members from my mother's side were there. And then upon arriving, there were too much controversies, there were too much fights, because people were fighting over the fact that there's a confession that was made by my grandmother, allegedly, that she's the one who actually killed my older brother. And the reason why she killed my older brother with her daughter-in-law, it was because our older brother actually got a house, but then he just decided to hand that house over to our grandmother because he believed that his grandmother was his second mother, and he loved our grandmother as much as he used to love our mother by the time when he was still alive. So the family members were saying that he was killed for that house so that the daughter-in-law and his son and also the grandson can be the ones to inherit that house, because it's like, although my older brother gave that house with his whole heart willingly, he was not forced by anybody to register it under our grandmother's name. They were on edge. They felt like maybe sometime in future he will just change his mind and say, you know what, this is my house. Every other family member who's staying in this house should just get out, because this is my own house. I got it because of my own hustles. So to prevent that happening in the future, they just decided like to cut his life short so that they cannot have that burden of maybe he could end up chasing everybody out in the house. And also my grandmother, allegedly, when he died, he wanted his son to inherit the house, and also the child of the son and the wife as well. So why there was controversy over this issue in the house is because some of the family members actually believed that my mother shouldn't hear this news, because if she hears the confession, she would feel extremely hurt and disappointed at her mother if she were to hear this. So it's better if they just conceal the whole story and not talk about it to my mother or to any of my family members. But then one of our cousins decided to break the news because she was feeling so emotional. The whole story was burdensome, and she just decided to crack the news. And some people were supporting her decision that she decided to disclose everything, and other people were not supportive. So everyone was like fighting. There was no unity, like, okay, somebody died, we should all be united, there should be love, and we should all be together in this. People were divided in the family. Okay, so my mother, obviously, and everyone, my dad cried, we also cried, everyone felt so hurt, and everyone felt so much disappointed upon hearing this confession that they were trying to conceal. So my mother decided that, okay, the following day, right, we will just go back to the village, because her mental health is really deteriorating there, since there is no unity, there's no love, everyone is fighting everybody, and people are fighting over this matter, because other people also didn't want even my family to hear how he died. Apparently he died using the bathroom, and people had to come and they had to break the bathroom door and get him out of they called the ambulance, paramedics, thinking that he was still alive, not knowing that he died, and then he was pronounced dead. So they didn't want, other family members didn't want even us to hear simple details of how he died, because they were afraid that how can he die such a strange death, whereas the other people in the house, probably maybe he said something there, maybe he screamed. Why is it that there was nobody? My grandmother didn't go and maybe help him out, or didn't call the ambulance in advance. So to avoid a lot of question and to close the story very fast, they just decided to conceal the details. But there are other people in the family who were like loyal to my mother, and they decided to disclose everything. So my mother decided to go back to the villages with us, because her mental health was deteriorating a lot. She just lost her firstborn child. Just imagine, it was her first time to see a child with that firstborn, and then she just lost him in a very strange way. And also there was a confession that was made by her own mother. So it was so draining to her, and she was so burdened at that point. She couldn't take it anymore to stay around the people who allegedly killed his own son through witchcraft. There was too much witchcraft with my grandmother, the daughter-in-law, and everything like that. There was too much witchcraft involved, and so many confessions and rumors. So the following day, we also didn't have money to go back home on that day. So my mother told us that we have to walk back to our village again. But then this time we're not going to go back to our village with our daddy, because our father felt like he should go to this other house that he had in the city nearby and remain there, whereas he's hustling for jobs and for money, because he really felt like we are desperately in need of cash, since my mother lost his firstborn son, and he needed to provide for the family, because the needs now were like expanding even more. Money for transportation, and you know, in our African culture, if somebody dies, people usually comes to the house just to sympathize and to leave the words of encouragement, and then the family should provide food to those people who would come and say some words of encouragement, drinks, and other food. So my father remained. So now it was only me and my siblings who had to walk back to our village. So we wake up very early in the morning. It was around 5 a.m. We said bye to our family members, and then we left. And then upon leaving, like, we were walking a very long distance, just like we did before when we were coming to the city. So upon walking a very long distance, the sun rose, whereas we're still on the road. Sometimes we'll just talk about other conversations because we're kids and we're just trying to forget about the situation. But then the situation of my brother dying would just come, and then we'll just get emotional on the road. So it was switching in between having baby conversations because we're all young, and also having conversations about the situation that happened. So as we were walking around 12 midday, there was another guy who popped up on us, and then this guy just appeared out of nowhere. We didn't see where he came from, but then he just appeared out of nowhere, and then he started greeting He greeted my mom. My mama said hi. He asked, how are you? My mom said, I'm good, thanks. And he said he was good. After that, he was bouncing like on the road. He wasn't walking normal. He was giving a type of para walk, or like he's a dangerous person walk. He was like bouncing and doing styles. He would go forward and then he would go backwards. He would bounce. And then after that, we all started to be afraid now, because we were all females. The only male was my younger brother that was with us. So we were afraid of what this dude would do to us, or of what he could possibly do to us and to the rest of our family. So then after that, we were still looking at him. He just disappeared out of nowhere. He just vanished. And then since he vanished, then my mother said that, okay, I think that now it's time for us to change the road. We shouldn't go through the main road until we reach home. We should just take a very, very short cut that will bring us home earlier. But then the reason why we are taking this shortcut is because I'm scared of this dude. It looks like he could do something that is bad to us. It looks like it's somebody who could potentially hurt us. So since we don't have weapons and no one will be able to fight him if he does something, we should just change the way, like the wise men when they changed the way. And then Herod was expecting them to go a certain way, and then they decided to go the other way. So we changed the way. We benched now to the jungle road. The jungle road was bigger at first. Cars could fit there in that jungle road. But then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened. The road became very, very narrow. You understand me? We couldn't, we just lost. It's like the big road just disappeared like that out of the blue. And then we're walking in the jungle now. And we also had to pave our ways because those trees were attached to each other and they were making it impossible for us to like walk. And then my mother was suspicious, was saying, no, this is some evil spirit. There is no way, because there was road at first and then all of a sudden the road disappeared. It just became too small. And even when we're looking back, like the road is small, we no longer see the road that we came with in this jungle. So something is suspicious. She doesn't think that this thing is only like physical. She's thinking that we're dealing with the spirit here. And she even suspecting that the nigger who greeted her was not a real human being, but then it was an evil spirit. As we were navigating our way, removing bushes and paving the way, the nigger appeared one last time out of nowhere. He appeared from the side and he was in between the bushes. And then this nigger started looking at us. And then we also looked at him. My mother also looked at him. And then my mother told us that we should be rushing, going faster, because this nigger appeared out of the blue, out of nowhere. You couldn't tell where he came from. So after that, we navigated our way through that jungle. And then all of a sudden, it became so dark, like extremely dark. In few minutes, maybe we're 30 minutes in, or maybe 45 minutes in, and then it became extremely dark, like it was night. It became night. It's like we entered into a different time zone. It's like we're no longer in South African time zone, because when we left the main road, it was around 12, and we had probably another 6 hours before the sun could set. You understand me? But then now, for 45 minutes or 30 minutes within the jungle, the sun is setting, and all of a sudden there's darkness all around us. We couldn't see each other with our naked eyes. we could only hear voices of our family members. And the type of darkness that was there, it was so thick. It's like you could hold this darkness within your hands and then mold it into something. I felt like it's a type of darkness that you can hold and mold into something and shape it into something. That's how thick the darkness was. I couldn't see someone who was in front of me. So we just decided to hold hands together so that nobody gets lost and nobody maybe gets killed within that forest. And then after that, we started hearing the jungle animals making strange, weird sounds that I've never heard since I was born. It was my first time hearing those sounds. We heard them making strange noise, left, right, center. And then my mother said that, no, this is not normal at all. Let's just pray to the Lord. At this time, nobody needs to lose faith. We just need to remain strong because we're in a situation here. We just need to pray to the Lord because this is not normal. We just entered into a spiritual realm. This is not physical. Let's pray. We prayed. And then after we finished praying, holding hands together, we continued to pave our way within the jungle, holding hands with each other, at the same time trying to remove the trees that were tangled to each other. And we walked for a very long time. And then after walking for a very long time now, the person who was walking from the front noticed that there was no longer bushes to take to the side. It's like the way was becoming more of a like freeway. There were no longer like tall bushes that we had to remove from our faces in order for us to pass, and we have to remove in front of our bodies in order for us to pass. So after we entered that place, my mother went to the front, and then she just felt everything with her foot because we couldn't see a thing. It was total darkness. It was very, very dark. And then my mother felt the ground with her foot. Then after feeling the ground with her foot, he noticed that, okay, it looks like here there's no longer bushes that are intertwined to each other that we have to remove. We can actually use this space to sit up until it becomes a daytime again. And my mother was saying that we should just remain at that place until we see the sun coming back again the following day, because if we moved, she's afraid that we will lose each other because it's too dark, and maybe the demons or Satan or the spirits that are around us will make scary sounds, and then maybe some of us will end up running, and the moment we separate from each other, some of her children will end up dying in that forest. So she might have to deal with double pain of losing that one child and maybe somebody else, or maybe it could even be her who loses her life next. So then we sat down there, and then we prayed. And then after that, it was very, very cold. It was the coldest night of my life, that one. And then we fell asleep. My sister fell asleep first, my older sister, and then my younger brother fell asleep, and then I also fell asleep. By then my mother didn't fall asleep. I was sitting on the left hand side of my mom, and then she was just hugging me on my shoulder, and then my sister as well was on the right. She was also being hugged by my mom, and then my brother was on the lap of my mother because she wanted to feel all of us so that she doesn't lose none of us in that situation. So after I fell asleep, then I heard my mother waking me up, and then when I waked up, my mother said that, you hear what is going on? Do you hear? Listen to that sound. Listen to that sound. Then I listened to the sound. Then when I listened to the sound, it didn't sound like none of the jungle animals. This sound was very, very different from the animals that have been making weird ass sounds ever since we arrived. That one was a sound of footstep, like someone is coming towards our direction. And then it also went with another sound, which sounded something like I don't know how to imitate the sound in English, but then in Xhosa, that's how best I can do in imitating the sound that I heard that night. Like it was like that. And then I became so terrified, I became so scared. And then my mother told me that she doesn't want to wake up my older sister and my younger brother. Maybe because she thought that I was stronger than my older sister. That's why she decided not to wake her up and wake me up instead. Then she said that let's pray. Then we prayed to the Lord. And then after that, she said that although the footsteps are sounding like they are coming close to our directions, nobody is gonna run, because if we're gonna run, it's either these demons will kill us one by one in this jungle and nobody will know what happened to us, or maybe they will just kill one person or two people and then the rest will be saved. So if we have to die, we'll all die together, holding hands with each other. So, okay, fast forward after that, now it was starting to be like there was a light all of a sudden, but then the light wasn't that dominant. It was the light of the stars from the sky, and then we also saw the moon. The moon was lighting up a little bit, so we kind of saw our surroundings. And when we saw our surroundings, we saw that this space that we were in was a space that was surrounded by the forest, but then it was just a little space for us to sit. So, okay, I was comforted by the fact that, okay, at least there is light now after too much darkness. And during the time when there was still darkness, the only thing we would see were the flies that had light. Is it cricket flies? Is it called cricket flies in English? I forgot the name, but whatever the name it is, those flies that have fireflies. Yeah, I think it's fireflies. Yes. Yeah, the only thing we could see then was only fireflies, but then I was comforted by the fact that, okay, at least there are stars in the skies. We could see the moon, and I saw the faces of my family members. That was comforting a little bit to me. And then I went back to sleep. I fell asleep. I didn't plan it, but then I was just taken to my sleep. And then as I was sleeping, after a long time of sleeping, I heard my mother screaming, "Hallelujah! Praise be to God! Hosanna!" And then I just jumped out of my sleep. I was like, what is this? What is this? And then I decided to look at my mother's face. When I looked at her face, I saw that she was looking up the sky. Like, after that, I decided to look at what she's looking at as well, because I wanted to see what was making her to scream and say, "Hallelujah, Hosanna, praise be to God." Then when I looked up the sky, I saw the moon descending from the sky, coming above our heads, and then it would go back, and then it would come again, but then it would adjust in size when it's coming down, and then it would adjust the size when it's going back again. It did that for probably 10 times. And then after it did that, my mother talked about it to me. She said that she believes that it's a sign from the Lord that He is saying to us, He heard our prayers and then He is with us. Nothing bad is going to happen to us. We'll just arrive home safe. But if you ask me personally, it's like I just don't know what was it. I can't say it was the evil spirits. At the same time, I can't really say it was a confession. It was the Lord confirming to us that we are in safe hands. there's nothing that's going to happen to us. Because that moon was not a literal moon to me. Because there's only one universal moon. There are no different moons. Maybe 10 moons or like 2 moons in South Africa. That one came to us specifically. If the moon could have came down, it could have been written in the records that in this year there was a moon that descended from the sky to the earth, and it came very close to the earth, and then it went back for those consecutive number of times. But then there's nothing like that in the history. So I feel like it could just be something spiritual, but I cannot be able to discern what type of spirit was it. Was it the evil spirit, or was it maybe a vision from the Lord trying to confirm to us that he is with us? After we saw that, my mother prayed with me. We prayed together. My brother didn't see this. My sister didn't see this because they were sleeping. And my mother didn't want to wake them up because she felt like the situation will be worse if they were to wake up, since she believed that they had like weaker hearts. Maybe they could get too scared, maybe run away or do something crazy, which would put the life of others at risk. Maybe we would all get separated and stuff. So after that, okay, I went right back to sleep. And then after I went back to sleep, there were other signs that wake me up. Then I waked up, and then I stayed till morning. Then we saw the sun coming out. Then after we saw the sun coming out, like even my brother and my sister were all awake now. And then we thank the Lord that, okay, finally the sun is like rising. We can all go home and we can all be safe after a very, very long, frustrating night, having encounters with the evil spirits in the jungle. So when the sun came up, we noticed that my mother, when she left the city with us, she had her doek on, right? Her head cover on. Her head was covered, but then she lost that doek in the bushes. We tried to look around a little bit before we could depart, but then we couldn't see her doek. We couldn't find it. And then we said, oh, okay, your doek is a very useless thing, actually. It's not really a big deal, you understand? So we can just leave it in the bushes as long as we are all alive. So we left very fast. And then as we were leaving, we walked for quite a long time. And then after walking a considerable amount of distance, we started seeing a city now, which my mother, and it's not a city, it was a village actually, which my mother recognized. And then my mother said, oh, I recognize that village, I know it. This is Breibach village. I know it. I know that village. And then she recognized other nearby villages as well. So we became so happy, although we knew that we were far away from home. We became so happy that at least now we have the surety, we have the assurance that we just got out of the spiritual realm. Now we can see the type of villages that my mother can recognize. And we also saw other forests that we had to pass. But then it was so comforting to us that these forests that we had to pass, it was the type of forest that my mother recognized and knew by names. So we walked, we passed the villages, we passed the forest. At that point, we were so bruised. Our bodies were bruised because of trying to navigate the jungle without light. We had thorns on our flesh. We had thorns on our feet. We had thorns on our legs and all over our body. We were bruised. Even the faces were bruised. Even my mother, everyone had bruises. Our heads had thorns. Like there were thorns hooked on our hair and on my mother's hair as well. Everybody looked like they've been through something. And we were also afraid that we would meet people who knew us when we enter our village, and maybe they could ask us question, where are you guys from, You look like you've been through hell. Like you literally look like all coming from hell. Even some of our clothes were torn apart. So we walked, we continued to walk for a long time until we were very close to our village, and then we entered the village peacefully, and then we were home all of a sudden. When we got home, we just closed the door. We didn't even go to our rooms to rest or to do anything else. We just prayed. We praised the Lord for saving us from this horrible nightmare. And then after that, we went to the room because everyone wanted to rush to bed to just, relax, whereas taking the thorns off the flesh and taking the thorns off the hair and taking the thorns off the clothes as well. But then when we entered the room, to our surprise, my mother's doek, which we left in the bushes, was now inside the home on top of the bed, and she only had that doek. It was not identical. Like, okay, she had two identical doeks that looked the same, so it's probably the other one. No, she only had that type of doek. The one that she lived in the bushes is the one that we find in our home. And then we were all talking about it. We were wondering, I wonder how did this thing happen? And it's more like confirming now everything that went through, that it was spiritual and it wasn't physical. It's probably the demonic spirits that took that doek from the bushes and brought it to our home, maybe so that we can be scared of living or staying in that home, because it had something that reminds us of the horrible experiences that we came across whereas we're in the bushes. So my mother decided that she's not gonna wear that doek again. She's just taking it to lit it up and burn it off, because she didn't feel comfortable with it. So she took it off the bed and then she burned it, and then she was praying as she was doing all that. So we rested at our house. We took off the thorns. Everybody was happy that at least there is that sense of relief. At least we're home, because we thought that we were going to die in those jungle. Maybe the animals were going to devour us, or these demons were going to be physical with us, or maybe we're going to get lost and not come home safe. Maybe we were going to leave other people in the bushes. But then there was that sense of relief, like at least we have this burden that our older brother died, but at least we're all safe and we all came home safe. So after we took a shower, after we bathed, and after we changed the clothes, and then we were like more relaxed. We put lotion in our skin because we had so many bruises. We're so relaxed. And then my mother now started telling us that maybe it's highly possible that because she heard the confession of my grandmother from other family members, and she wasn't supposed to hear that confession, maybe she decided to send her demonic spirits to follow us when we're taking a walk, so that maybe they can kill her, because she heard something that she wasn't supposed to hear. But then it was all theoretical. We couldn't really know for sure where did the spirits came from. It could have been from the daughter-in-law as well. We couldn't really figure out, but then all we know is that my grandmother and the daughter-in-law, they were heavily involved in witchcraft. So it's highly possible that these spirits were from them. So after my mama told us all of these things and she was analyzing stuff, it's like she kept quiet for some time. And then now it's like these people that she had something against were like far away. She couldn't confront them and she couldn't say anything to them. All she could do was to talk about them. And they didn't even hear that she was talking about them. So she started looking for something closer or someone closer to blame. And guess what? That person who had to take the blame was me. I had to take the blame for everything that happened to us. Our horrible experience in the bushes, our encounters with within the bushes. I had to take that blame, and I had to apologize for making the family to go through that. Now, I know you're asking yourself, how the hell can an 8-year-old child make the whole family to go through that horrible nightmare? This is how I made them go through it, according to my mom then. She told me that, before my firstborn son died, you actually asked your father to buy you chocolates. You asked for treats, and then she bought you some snacks, and she bought you some chocolates, of which I shared those chocolates and snacks with my siblings. I didn't eat them alone. So she was saying that if you could have never asked for your dad to spend his last money on those chocolates and snacks, we could have had money for transportation, and we could have never walked by our foot. Funniest shit ever. So, even if, let's say that I could have never asked my dad to buy me the treats, which I shared with the whole family. She even benefited from the treats because she also ate the treats with us. If I never asked for his last money to buy chocolates and treats for us before his firstborn son died, guess what? That money was too little. It was too little to transport me, my older sister, my younger brother, and my father and herself to the city and take us back. It could have never took all of us to the city in the first place, let alone taking us back. So even if I could have never asked for that money for treats, I could have never been bought those treats by my dad. It was impossible for that money to carry all of us to that city and from that city to our village. But then I kind of felt like she was just frustrated, right? And she was looking for someone to blame within the house. But then it was also confusing to me that she decided to pick me, that I'm the one who's going to be that black goat that should be blamed for every horrible thing that happened. And I ended up apologizing, by the way, although I knew that I wasn't responsible for it. Because when we were in the bushes, she wasn't expressing her deep feelings and fears to anybody else except for me. She would skip my older sister. She wouldn't confess how she really feels inside herself to my older sister. She wouldn't wake her up to say, this is how I really feel about the situation. Pray with me. She never even did that to my younger brother. Okay, pray with me. I'm waking you up from sleep for you to pray with me. I'm hearing some weird sounds and I'm starting to feel scared. I feel like I should be with somebody. I shouldn't be awake alone. I should be awake with somebody so that I don't go through this thing alone. I want to go through this thing with somebody. No, she didn't wake anybody else except for me. So she waked me up. I was with her all the time, emotionally, physically. I understood everything that was going on, and I was also praying with her. So it's like we're buddies in the jungle. As long as we are in trouble, we are buddies. My goodness. As long as we are in trouble, we are buddies. Like, we remain united, we remain together. Okay? We'll share sympathies together. But then, when the trouble is over, when I feel safe, it's like you'll be my enemy. I will start blaming everything on you. When I'm looking for somebody to blame, or for somebody to take my frustrations out. I'll just pick you up. And then after that, she was taking her frustration out on me for days. Like, she would bring it up even after I apologized, and I said, okay, maybe you're right, I was responsible for it. And then she would just shout at me, maybe say, the other day we went through this stuff, it was because of you. So yeah, by the way guys, before I forget telling you, even before my grandmother died, she called, allegedly, she called my mother. She told my mother's sisters that my mother should be called because she have a lot of things to confess to her. Apparently it was witchcraft things that she had been doing to my family that she wanted to confess. But then the family members decided that they will conceal that, and they wouldn't tell my mama that, hey, your mama is about to die, and she needs you here so that she can actually confess the thing that she did. No, she didn't. They didn't do that. They decided to put it under carpet and let it slide. So it is being said that she also made that confession about my brother before she died, that she's the one who was involved in making my older brother disappear. By the way, there is part 2 of the story. Part 2 is when we went to the funeral. We also didn't have money for transportation, so we had to walk to another village again, the one that had my older brother buried in. So I'll be talking more about what transpired after, and then life after death, what happened to our family members after our older brother died. Thank you so much for watching this story. It was a little bit heavy on my side, but then we're done for tonight. I'll just go to sleep in a few minutes. Please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and then follow my Facebook page as well. As usually, I love you so much. Bye bye.